Hello and welcome, all friends and devotees of yoga and meditation. Today is Saturday, the 5th of September, 2015. Continuing our lecture and discussion forum, the title of this work being To Understand Buddhism. The research originally was conducted by Grandmaster Chin Kong. For those who are new, who are watching these videos for the first time, Grandmaster Chin Kong is one of the leading Chinese Buddhist authorities. He's one of the most distinguished Chinese Buddhist authorities of our time. He was born in 1927. He should be in his late 80s now, and he lives in Australia. So I'll advise you to proceed to the websites. I have attached them to this video to make it easy for you. So if you already are on To Understand Buddhism, just click on it. It opens it. We'll begin our reading from page 29. We'll begin today's readings from page 29. And we'll gradually walk through. I'll read the lectures through, and then you contemplate on them, you meditate on them, and if you have any questions, contact me by email. My email address is c.aburime, A-B-U-R-I-M-E, @hotmail.com, or Color College, C-O-L-O-U-R, color spelled British, C-O-L-O-U-R, C-O-L-L-E-G, Color College @hotmail.com. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to let me know. So I'll begin reading from page 29, To Understand Buddhism. Page 29, I'm starting from the second paragraph. The Dharma that we return to and rely upon refers to proper thoughts and viewpoints, which is hard to accomplish. Only when we are truly enlightened will our thoughts and viewpoints be correct. Before we reach enlightenment, we can adopt the proper thoughts and viewpoints of Buddha Shakyamuni as ours. All the thoughts and viewpoints within the sutras are correct. We can at first rely on Buddha Shakyamuni, but only for a while, as he does not want us to rely upon him forever. This is like a student relying on teachers in school, but becoming independent after graduation. Likewise, before we attain great enlightenment, we need to rely on Buddha Shakyamuni and Buddha Amitabha as our teachers. Where is the Buddha? The Buddha is within the sutras, as Buddha Shakyamuni stated in the Infinite Life Sutra, and Buddha Amitabha relate to us through the 48 Great Vows. Relying on the teachings within the sutra is relying on the Buddha. We will do well to practice earnestly what the Buddha taught us to do or refrain from doing. In this way, we will be true and good students. Applying this concept in our daily living is to return and rely upon the Dharma jewel. The Sangha of the Sangha jewel represents purity and harmony, as in the 6 principles of harmony. Consequently, whenever we see a monk and nun, we do not want to dwell on whether this person is a great cultivator or a violator of precepts. Whether they are or are not is not our concern. Seeing a monk or a nun reminds us to see whether we ourselves have lived by the 6 principles of harmony or have cultivated purity of mind. To truly take refuge is to know how to reflect on ourselves since we still have all the same bad habits and are committing the same offenses, having been deluded for infinite aeons. It will be helpful for Buddhists to set up the triple jewels in their home. When we make offerings to the Buddha statue or picture, we will be reminded that we need to be awakened. How? When our six senses encounter the external environment, we will not discriminate or attach or give rise to any thoughts. For example, meditation is not giving rise to any discriminating thoughts or attachments. Thus, one achieves a high level of wisdom and is able to see all situations clearly. However, ordinary people like us use the false mind and constantly give rise to wandering and discriminatory thoughts, what I call imaginary thoughts. Wandering and discriminatory thoughts and attachments in these situations. The appearance of everything we see is false. Once we have understood these principles and learned how to not have wandering thoughts and attachments, we can also become a bodhisattva or Buddha. Taking the three refuges is a beginning step in practicing Buddhism. From there, we proceed on to the foundation of Theravada Buddhism, then to Mahayana Buddhism for the third condition, which is comprised of A, generating the body-mind, B, deeply believing in the law of cause and effect, C, reciting and upholding Mahayana Sutras, and D, encouraging others on the path to enlightenment. Before practicing Mahayana Buddhism, we need to generate the body-mind. Bodhi means awakening. Thus, the body-mind is an awakened mind. How will we be awakened? When one first realizes and understands that this world is full of sufferings, upon careful and rational observation of society, we may find our conclusions frightening. Looking back over the last 30 years, we see that people used to be kinder and more considerate, whereas people nowadays are more selfish and usually only think of benefiting oneself at the expense of others. This selfishness has created a chaotic world, making even the climate abnormal. Therefore, the first thing in generating the body-mind is to realize that this world is filled with suffering and that the Western Pure Land is filled with bliss. True awakening is when one seeks to escape these sufferings, then to attain happiness. When one seeks to escape these sufferings of this life, and ultimately attain happiness. Second, awakening is the aspiration to benefit and help all sentient beings, to think of others and not of oneself. What are the urgent needs of sentient beings? There is nothing more important than the Buddha's teachings. Thus, our most pressing need is nurturing and training lecturers to continue to pass on Buddhism. Today, due to our advanced printing skills, numerous sutras have been distributed throughout the world, but regretfully, few people lecture on them. Since people have the tendency to misunderstand the meanings within the sutras, we need qualified people to lecture and explain them. Today, the best way to benefit others is to train lecturers and at the same time gain innumerable merits. We walk towards this goal with a great, tolerant mind. Not just for one. We walk towards this goal with a great tolerant mind, not just for one way place. Way place, as I said before, means temple. A temple is a way place, a place where we practice the way. Not just for one way place, area, or country, but for the whole world. If only one country prospers and the others are poor, the poor will envy and resent the prosperous, leading to conflicts or worse. How could one pass the days peacefully knowing this? If everyone is prosperous, then all will be happy and peaceful. I'll stop at this point and leave the rest of it to your contemplation. So in Buddhism, we hear the message. This is the message. Our relationship with the Buddha, again, as I like to instruct, is a teacher-student relationship. We are students of the Buddha. Doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter. 2,600 years is nothing. The Buddha is our teacher and we are his students. This is exactly the relationship. And this is why Buddhism is not a religion. It's not like Christianity. Christianity, the Christians are not students of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is their God. In Islam, Allah, the students are not students of Allah. They are worshippers of Allah. Prophet Muhammad is the Rasul of Allah. He teaches Muslims to worship Allah. In Hinduism and so on, they worship Krishna. In Buddhism, we don't worship the Buddha. The Buddha is our teacher. The relationship between Buddhists and Buddha is a teacher-student relationship. Very different from the relationship between Christians and Christ. Very different from the relationship between Muslims and Allah. Very different from the relationship between Hindus and Krishna and so on. So the relationship here is a teacher-student relationship. The Buddha is a teacher. We don't worship the Buddha. We take his instructions, we contemplate on them, just as I've left these instructions for you. You contemplate on them, you meditate on them, you reflect on them. And our teachers today are just like our guides, spiritual guides. They just give you the guidance on how best you can digest these teachings from the Buddha to your best benefit. So this is what I am to you, just like a simple guide. So that as you read, when you read the instructions I've given you this morning, you contemplate on them, you meditate on them, and there is a point or a few points that are sort of confusing to you that you don't understand very well, then you may contact me. That's why I gave you my email addresses. Feel free to contact me. Once you contact me on the issue, I'll reflect on it, I'll work on it, and then I'll give you a reply based on my experience, because I've been studying Buddhism for a long time. Much longer than you. I've studied Buddhism since 2002, for over 10 years now, and I've been learning Chinese for about 25 years. So it's just like a professor in a university. A professor in a university was once a student. A professor in a university did not begin as a professor. He had to study, he had to go to university, he had to take his undergraduate, get his first degree, get his master's, get his Ph.D., commence postdoctoral studies, and then become a professor after years of publication as a postdoctoral studies. This is the normal procedure. That's exactly how it is in Buddhism. I always tell students, Buddhism is not a world religion. Christianity is, because there's worship of God there. Islam is, because there's worship of God. Hinduism is, because there's worship of God. Buddhism is not a world religion, because there's no God. We don't worship any God here. We only try to extirpate suffering from our lives, because that's what the Buddha taught us. How to remove suffering from your life so that you don't have to be suffering in this life. That's exactly the objective of Buddhism. So to define Buddhism, I'll always keep telling you, my definition for Buddhism is very clear. What is Buddhism? Folks will say, well, I'll say Buddhism is a universal institution for advanced learning. That's the definition. Buddhism is a universal institution for advanced learning. And the Buddha is our supreme teacher. So all the Buddhist establishments worldwide is just like classrooms of an institution. It's just like a university with classrooms and faculties and theaters. All Buddhist establishments worldwide, they are just like the classrooms where the Dharma, which is the Buddhist teachings, is being taught to the people, being instructed to the people. Therefore, Buddhism, in my definition, is a universal institution for advanced learning, established by Gautama Siddhartha, the Buddha, 2,600 years ago. He is our supreme teacher. We honor him, just as you honor your teachers. You honor a Nobel Prize winner, you give him high reverence, high honor. The Buddha is an exceptional teacher, the greatest of teachers. And we accord him that particular reverence and honor. He brought us the solutions of suffering. He told us how to extirpate suffering from our lives by bringing us the cause of suffering. What is the cause of suffering? Your desires, my desires. We desire too many things. So when we begin to reduce our desires, reduce our craving, reduce our hankering, our lusts, our greed, then suffering gradually begins to disappear. And this is the foundation of the teachings of the Buddha. And he spends the rest of his life trying to expound on these topics, giving so many examples, so many sutras, so many lectures, still coming to the same point, showing human beings self-control, self-restraint, cutting down desires. And when you do this, at the end of the day, you'll be able to extirpate suffering completely, dismiss suffering completely from your existence. And then if you imagine, can you imagine your existence without suffering? That's the exact objective of Buddhism. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Enjoy your day. Have a pleasant Saturday, pleasant weekend. Namo Amitofo.